Hi, Michelle. How are you? Good? What's this? Very good? No.
Lori actually just talked to her. She said she hasn't seen him in a while down at the gym.
Good evening. I'll call the Selectmen's meeting of February 19th, 2020 to order. Mr. Pinion, do we have a need for non-public this evening?
Mr. Vice Chairman, we do under RSA 91A, colon 3, Roman numeral 2, lowercase e, pending litigation.
Thank you. Before we get started, I'll just announce to everybody, in case they're here for some meetings here, we have 3 public hearings with Brewster Academy that aren't going to happen tonight, in case you folks happen to be here for those. And there was going to be a discussion on the Lakes Region Household Hazardous Product Facility and Lakes Region Planning Commission program updates that won't happen tonight. So in case you happen to be here for those, sorry.
You don't need to be here.
Consideration of minutes, January 15th, 2020. Do we have any corrections or comments?
Would you like a motion to accept as written?
Certainly.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. The minutes of February 5th, 2020.
Mr. Chairman, I have a change on page 5. Top, it's the motion, and it got mixed, we got mixed in there the notice, so I believe it should say it was moved by Brad Harriman and seconded by Paul O'Brien to accept donations in the amount of $2,393.15 for last night Wolfeboro event.
Okay. Any other changes or comments?
I just have one on page 10. And it is the second paragraph, second line, say needs to be send. And that's all I have.
Okay. All you have anything?
Move to approve as amended?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next will be our bulk vote, which is includes our weekly manifests, property tax abatements for 2 properties on Stonehenge Road, intent to cut wood, and the yield tax levy.
I'll make a motion to accept the bulk vote.
Second?
Motion second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving right along. New business, we have the 2020 boat agent agreement with Goodhue and Hawkins. Are you going to present this one, Jim?
I believe Amy had reached out to the gentleman, Jeremiah, and I do not believe he's here this evening.
Okay. I do know this is an annual thing we've done in the past. So, there it is here. Does the board feel comfortable in going through this, or would you rather have somebody come make a presentation to us and speak to us about it?
I'm comfortable. I mean, we get some good money from them being a boat agent, and it has worked out exceptionally well over the last couple of years.
Yep, no, I agree with you. It's been been good. It helps us out, keeps the money in the town, and it's a nice service to be able to provide the residents and the people that visit us. So,
Move to approve it?
I'll second.
motion second to approve the boat license agreement. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Cross Country Association easement update.
Thank you for letting me speak with you tonight. On behalf of myself and two of our other board members that are with us tonight, Steve Flagg, our Vice President of the Wolfeboro Cross Country Ski Association, and Susan Replier, we're here to present a campaign that the Ski Association has undertaken recently for permanent protection of the Sewell Woods Trail easement, the parking area, and the warming hut. I think everybody's probably aware of where this is, but let me just pass this out. This is Sewell Woods, the conservation area. The easement location is right there at the end of Cloud Road.
Yep.
Recently, one of our other directors, Rob Hausman, approached Cal and Verna Flagg about the possibility of placing a easement on a piece of property, a small piece of property, 3/10 of an acre, which includes the parking lot, the warming hut, which is also a storage garage for the large groomer, and the trailhead easement, or the trailhead entrance itself with the kiosk there. Since 1999, when Cal and Verna first started cutting trails in there for cross-country skiing, they have been paying the real estate taxes and have graciously allowed use of the parking area there and the warming hut, which was built with volunteer labor and funding of the materials by the Flaggs at that time. So all of this period since then, they have, as I mentioned, graciously allowed the public to use that entrance. I would ask you to envision for just a second if that trailhead entrance was not permanently protected, if for some reason it was closed, and this almost happened a couple of years ago as a result of a confrontation between one of the patrons in town and the way the parking area was being administered. At that time, well within their rights, they threatened to possibly close that entrance during the ski season. So you can imagine what that would mean. There is no other improved entrance to Sewell Woods other than that Sewell Woods trailhead. We've sat down, we being the Cross Country Ski Association, sat down with Lakes Region Conservation Trust and looked at any other possibilities, and there are no other possibilities. So the Flaggs are getting up in years. There's no guarantee of what would happen once they pass on to that entrance, which is on their property. So this is the first opportunity we've had to permanently protect this. The Cross Country Ski Association had the easement signed and recorded. It stipulates that the Cross Country Ski Association will be responsible for the parking area and the maintenance of the warming hut. There was a value placed at the time the easement was put in place on the easement by Lamprey Associates of a value of $60,000. Of that amount, so far, the Cross Country Ski Association has donated $20,000 plus the associated legal costs of drawing up the easement and also a promissory note with the Flaggs that the bulk of the easement, the $60,000, will be raised and given to them by no later than October of this year. So the Cross Country Ski Association now has undertaken this campaign to begin raising funds. In the meantime, we've approached Lakes Region Conservation Trust the Wolfeboro Conservation Commission, the Wolfeboro-Tuftonboro Land Bank, all for assistance, and possibly for the Lakes Region Conservation Trust and the Wolfeboro Conservation Commission to be backup easement holders in the case that something were to happen to the Cross Country Ski Association, which is a 501c3 organization. We're waiting, that's in progress right now. However, the land bank has graciously agreed to donate dollar for dollar up to $20,000 towards this campaign. So what I'm asking for tonight is a formal endorsement, letter of support, if you will, by the Board of Selectmen that we can take to potential donors, to the Conservation Commissions, Lake Region Conservation Trust, and any other businesses that want to see just how serious we are about raising the funds to permanently protect this trailhead. Again, this trailhead is used not only for skiing, but year-round for biking, walking. It's one of the first and probably most important links in this town in an economic driver in terms of people that come from outside of town and people within the town to ski, to use the property for the various things that I just mentioned. So that's why we come to you tonight. We are making good progress already with some of the donors that have come forward. We're hoping that businesses will come forward in the meantime. I spoke with Mary DeVries at the Chamber. She's anxious to assist us in any way that she can with businesses and getting the word out to people. So that's my spiel. Do you have any questions for me or for Steve or Susan? Or?
I think I'll just add to it that, I think this whole thing's a huge asset for the town of Wolfeboro here to have that and have the, what Steve's done over the years down in there, developing those trails and everything and maintaining them and stuff. And he goes out at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning grooming and stuff. He does a tremendous job out there. So hats off to Steve and the crew there from the Wolfeboro Cross Country Ski Association that does all this work on there. It's I think it's a nice draw for the town, and personally, I'm definitely in favor of endorsing this this campaign. Your request to go out and raise money for it. So, Linda?
Yeah, I agree with Brad. We are a recreational destination. Parking lot is extremely important to use Sewell Woods. I've skied out there, and so has my daughters and grandkids. It's an important part of who we are. I definitely would support a letter backing this campaign. Can you clarify for me exactly how much money you are now needing to raise? Is it the full 60, or do you have 20 and you're raising 40?
The Ski Association has donated $20,000 initially. That's been already given to the flags as a good faith offer. The remainder $40,000 has to be raised. As I said, the land bank has agreed to support us dollar for dollar up to $20,000. So essentially we're looking at raising $20,000, which is not a huge amount of money compared to some of the other campaigns we've had for the large groomer and so forth. And as an aside, this is a letter that went out to some of our donors, kind of explaining the whole process. This is a copy of the easement deed.
We go back to the mic, please, so people at home can hear you on TV too and stuff. So thank you.
I also have a copy of the easement deed and the promissory note, if that's something that you would like to look at some point in time. But I think once the word begins to get out to the community, I think, as you mentioned, Linda, that there's going to be a lot of support. This is definitely something, an opportunity that we don't want to let slip by.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
You want a motion?
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that the Board of Selectmen send a letter to the Cross Country Ski Association supporting their campaign to purchase an easement on the parking lot and head to Sewell Woods.
Thank you very much.
Second.
Motion been made and second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right.
You want that,
Thank you very much.
Linda? When you're done, we need that letter for...
Okay, next on our agenda is a discussion for the request to lease the Wolfeboro Railroad Station.
Good evening. I'm Pat Hodder. I'm going to read you a statement to the board. Suzanne Ryan and I are interested in opening our joint antiques and vintage jewelry businesses in the Wolfeboro Railroad Station space, currently subleased by the Chamber of Commerce. Our businesses have been popular with tourists and residents alike and can be expected to draw more shoppers to downtown Wolfeboro during the season. An antique shop was located in that space years ago in the summer and was a strong draw card to Railroad Square. There is currently no other antiques business in downtown Wolfeboro. We are in discussions with the Wolfeboro Chamber of Commerce regarding this space. We will keep the board updated with our progress. We are excited about this prospect for a new business for Wolfeboro and look forward eventually to a favorable opinion from this board. That's Pat Hodder and Suzanne Ryan. Thank you.
Any questions or comments from the board, or just?
I guess my only comment is that, are you talking about this summer? I'm not quite sure what you're asking from us. Are you asking for us to give you permission to rent it this summer because it's still under the lease of the chamber?
No, we realize that. We
Okay.
did get a copy thanks to Mr. Pinio, and we looked over the lease and we realized that it's up the end of this year. So we're just putting our ideas forward and hoping that we can sort of have a placeholder.
So in other words, that when the chamber leases up in December, you would like us to put it out to bid so businesses can bid on renting that space?
Yes, we don't have anything more firm in place at this time. We have a meeting with the chamber next week to talk about the future.
Okay.
And would your business enterprise, I know it's probably in the formative stage, would the business enterprise be seasonal?
Yes.
Year-round, it would be seasonal?
It would be seasonal in the space that the Wolfeboro Nursery School used to occupy. It's sublet from the chamber.
Okay.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you, Pat.
thank you.
Thanks, Pat.
Did you want to add anything to that, Suzanne? Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is his amendment to the Wolfeboro Area Chamber of Commerce lease.
Mr. Vice Chairman, I have spoken with Ms. DeVries. We have an amendment to the current lease, which meets the intent for what the chamber would like to do with the building, extending the use of it for 1 month. This has been reviewed by Town Council. Mary has seen it since that time, and this is a pretty standard form at this point.
Okay. Yeah, I remember we had a discussion about this a couple of meetings ago, if I recall. We knew it was coming before us.
And I think we've done it other years.
Okay.
Mary, did you want to say anything to this, or you?
Just thank you to Mr. Pinio for looking into this on our behalf, and we would very much welcome the opportunity to extend the summer season through September again this year.
Okay. All right. Board members, do you have any questions, or I'd entertain a motion?
Okay, I'll move to extend the Chamber's lease as written on the document that execute this day, February 19th, 2020.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. Next on our agenda is to set a date for the Libby Museum trustees meeting.
So there's been a significant amount of talk about the Libby Museum over the past several months. One thing has come clear out of all of these discussions, and that is that the board really needs to sit down as the trustees of the Libby Museum, come up with some work plans and try to answer some of these questions that we have from our citizenry, and try to form a direction for our Libby Museum. So I'm open to how you want to handle scheduling a date.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think we do need to sit down. I think since I've been on the board, I don't recall us meeting as actual trustees to talk about things going on there, and we obviously have something major in front of us right now for that facility. So I completely agree. We need to get together. I kind of think we should probably set aside a separate meeting for that rather than try and squeeze it into a regular night meeting.
I agree.
So I entertain discussion as to what people think we should, what nights we should try, do it on an off Wednesday, or.
I would really like to wait until after we get the vote on the Warren article.
I agree.
So I have some kind of an idea on where how the public feels on it. I think that's our first. And the other thing I would hope that it would be a notice meeting as our regular Board of Selectmen's meetings are, because we're there as a group. And I also would make sure that there was public comment on that agenda.
Yep. No,
And under those conditions, I'm fine.
Yep. No, I completely agree.
I don't know if we've done this, but it would probably be nice if we don't have one to kind of have a charter. What our roles are as trustees, what our responsibilities are as trustees. That might be fertile for kind of our first meeting. Because we don't know what we're doing, if we don't know what our rules are, then we'll be making them up as we go along, and I don't think we'll do that.
I think we go to the will, and the will lays out what we are responsible for, and so I think we should take that will and
Yeah.
they're based on the will.
Whatever the enabling document is, we have probably out there, we have some good reference material as to what the responsibilities are of trustees of museums. And we probably should have that pretty well nailed down. So that when we start our deliberations on whatever we do, and then we have a basis to deliberate. That would be good. So I agree with you, Linda. We probably should get this done or start this after the town votes. So we get a signal of what's what.
Do you want to try and set a date tonight, or you would rather wait till after we get the results of the vote and then talk about it, set a date, or?
How about St. Patrick's Day?
I'm going to be away from the 11th through the 20th of March. But I think there are two selectmen not here tonight, so we could set a date, and it could be horrible for one of them, so.
Maybe do this at the next meeting then, which would be, what, the 4th?
Yeah, I think maybe.
What you're saying is, Linda, probably the 23rd on is probably more likely than not, right? Anything prior to the 23rd is probably less likely.
Correct.
Okay.
You could kind of tell them to keep in the back of our minds, maybe the 25th, which should be the 4th Wednesday, but talk about it further at our next meeting on the 4th,
That would be,
with our two members here, and
yep.
see if it all works. Oh, Dave is going away on vacation sometime in March too, so don't know just when those dates are.
Hopefully not on a cruise ship.
Okay, so maybe we could, yeah.
We won't make it to wear either.
So we'll put that on our agenda for the next meeting to,
Yep, I'll continue to work on some of these items, and we'll bring it back at the next meeting for discussion.
next on our agenda is the approval of the draft voters guide.
So I believe you all have a copy of the voter's guide. I did receive some feedback from Selectman Murray regarding some of the content. I have a meeting scheduled early next week, Monday morning, I believe, with a couple members of the Budget Committee to go over it as far as to review content. I just want to make sure that everybody has had the opportunity to review it and that we're in good shape. The tentative date for publication is going to be the first week in March, which I believe is going to be the 5th.
5th, yeah. I think that's it.
I have not read it, mea culpa. I'll get to it tonight, tomorrow. I'll get you some comment.
That's all I've got on that.
Okay. All right. Next on our agenda is approval of the Libby Museum letter.
So there's been a request from Mr. Harding for a letter regarding the Libby Museum. And in front of you, you've got two different copies. One that memorializes the events that have taken place and outlines where we have come to. And then another one that is a very brief summary to where we're at. I just would like some guidance from the Board of Selectmen as to which letter you would like to use for sending forward to Mr. Harding for his request in the November 20th meeting.
Any comments or questions from the board? So you'd be looking to send both of these, send the first one along with the second one?
I would send one or the other.
One or the other, okay.
The first one just goes into more specific detail, and the second one is more of a highlight.
I think my opinion would be the second one. When I read of these here, because it talks a little bit in more I'd say necessarily a positive way, but it leaves out the part that the original presentation that was for the warrant article was defeated, and the votes to recommend and stuff, and why it was pulled and stuff like that. And I don't know if we really need to address this into a letter that is going to go to them to request their further involvement with the project. So that's kind of my opinion on that.
I think that the donor, prospective donor, is asking, is there a continued interest on the part of the town to look deeply into whether we should restore or expand the Libby? And if it's expand, the donor stands ready to make some type of a financial commitment. And I think that the donor is asking kind of as a, is that the sense of the Congress right now? Is that where our heads are at? And I won't speak to the letters because I wrote one of them. I think that's as far as we should go. I think we should say, we are interested in sorting this out. We are divided, at least I'm on one side of this, we are divided as to whether we should restore or just go right to expand. And until we figure that out, we are where we are, divided. And I tend to agree with Brad. I mean, getting into all the puts and takes of what happened and why the warrant article got pulled, I don't think that serves a serves a purpose.
I don't think that's what he's asking. I think he's going back, I like the shorter one than the longer one, no doubt about that. But on November 20th, there was a motion made for us to move the project forward. And I asked, do you want a letter of support? And he said yes. And he's asking for that letter of support. And the only thing only letter of support at this time we're willing to give.
Yeah.
I think we owe it back to that, because that's where he's going back.
I was the one that seconded that motion, and we're reminding ourselves of that date, and I think following and preceding that motion.
And I think we owe him that. That's the only thing I've been wanting in here, and I would like some reference. This is the letter the board was willing to put forward based on the November 20th discussion. You okay with that, Paul?
Oh, yeah, I think I will confess that I wrote that second one. I think it spells out clearly, at least I believe, where we are. And if I could read the letter, at least part of it, it says, I believe that this is from Jim. This would be from Jim. I believe I'm accurate in that we all share a desire to restore the Libby. No question about that. What's not clear is whether we're divided, and where we are divided is whether we believe that the taxpayer should fund expanding the Libby and whether the town can confidently outline and fund the ongoing cost of an expanded operation. And I think that's where we are. And I think that's what we said on the 20th. And I think that's what we said prior to the 20th. We also believe that the voter needs to be given a clear choice between a restoration effort and an expanding effort. We also want to plan for more active fundraising support for the restoration phase and not just the expansion phase. And I think that was where we also landed, at least I landed on that. So I like, and I agree with you, Linda. We owe the donor, the prospective donor, clarity. I think that's right.
All right, can I have a motion then to ask for a choice between these two letters? Can I have a motion on, it sounds like we all prefer the shorter version, the second letter that's in our packet here, so.
I will support the second letter if there is a paragraph referencing the November 20th vote, and this is the answer based on that discussion.
That'd be cool.
Yep. I'll second that then. Any other discussion?
That's
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You can add that language in? Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Any other business this evening? Seeing none, committee reports. Let's start with you, Paul.
Yeah, I was up in Conway this past week with our community TV friends. We were continuing the look at prospective bidders for a build of a fiber network across the towns and across the county, and that's it's going along. I think what we're finding in these committees is all of our towns are very different. The needs of us are very different than the needs of, I won't mention another town, but we're different. And, but I think we all still want to play together and do team sport on this one. I've received 2 telephone calls, one from Verizon and one from T-Mobile, just inquiring on the ordinance package. And when that, and I've told both of them that this is for the wireless ordinances, that ordinance will be voted on by the public on March 10th. And I think that's, and I think we met with Jim to talk about leases. You and I, didn't we? We met last week to talk about leases. Railroad Museum lease.
We talked about an agreement, or the
agreement
that clarified the relationship between the railroad museum and the town.
Yes.
Kind of, as you
Thank you for
called.
clarifying.
Well, I started looking at you.
brain's
We were
mush.
looking for an operational plan,
Yes.
and we also wanted to clarify how our $95,000 payments were going to happen in relationship
Right.
to the LCHIP grant. I think those were the ones.
Those are the things we talked about. Because Johnson's has been in front of us many times, several times, and we want to make sure that we have clarity for him as well. And so that was the purpose of that. That's all I have.
You. Other than last Tuesday, all of us being together for the day for the voting day, I didn't have any other meetings. They had a community TV meeting this morning that I unfortunately couldn't attend due to plowing commitments I had to do. So I assume it all went well up there, right, Timothy? Okay, thumbs are up. So.
Thanks, Tim.
So that was it for me. Linda?
Yeah, I met with the treasurer of the Friends of Pop Whalen, and we sat down and met with Jim, take a look at some cost figures and to look at possible ways to have savings in the operating budget. And we had a very good conversation about that. I was also at the elections on the 11th, and we had 2,700 voters, and they kept on coming in, one right after another. It was really nice to see. I was at the Chamber Executive Board meeting, and I met with Jim and members of the Energy Committee to talk about the town's solar energy goals, and also ways that we might be able to save energy. That's all I have.
Thank you. Town Manager's report.
You guys pretty much summed up what we've been doing. We've been in the offices fighting the flu bugs, so that's been made for an interesting couple weeks. Other than that, it's just post-deliberative session recovery.
We don't need to quarantine the town hall for anything, do we?
No, I don't think so.
Put a mask on.
Good. Questions from the press? Good. Okay, public input. Anybody from the public have comments for us this evening?
Michael Hodder, Wolfeboro. Hopefully a helpful comment. Rather than inventing the wheel or reinventing the wheel, if you're looking for bylaws for your trusteeship as the Libby Museum trustees, you might look at the library's bylaws that govern the activities of their trustees. They might be helpful. They ought to be certainly parallel. And secondly, the first thing I would suggest is go look for the trust document that established the trust, which you'll find with the New Hampshire Attorney General's office, because you won't know what you're supposed to do until you see the trust document, which tells you what you're supposed to be doing. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
That's great.
Anybody else?
Those.
Question, when will the town report be available, approximately?
We just received the draft today. It's being reviewed, and it should go to print, so it shouldn't be too long. It'll be right off.
Okay. And just a note also that the gentleman that gave the presentation on the Sewell Woods easement did a fine job. And if you look to your master plan under future land use, you will see that that's one of the concerns, is keeping access to these lovely walkways and things that we have in the mountains and so forth. That was just a side thing. What, on your voter's guide, how did you
Suzanne Ryan's asking on the voter's guide, your question is, how did you handle the Libby? You know what, Suzanne?
You want to hold on just a second? He's coming down to put new batteries in for us, so.
We have a dead mic here. There you go.
Thank you. The discussion you had raised the question in my mind is how you would have handled that interpretation of your warrant article.
The way that we have worded that is it basically states that we are looking to establish a capital reserve fund for the Libby Museum. As I don't have it in front of me as far as the particulars, but
So you didn't define whether it's restore or expand or anything, you just
We don't
kind
know.
of left it generic?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, I guess I look at that warrant article, I don't know what kind of repairs may need to be done in order to open up. So it's hard to know, and that's kind of, and if we don't use it for that, I thought that was the thought of the town.
I recall having a discussion about whether to leave the word expand in there or not. And I know I was of the opinion that I wanted to leave it in there so it'll be all-inclusive in case,
Right.
say if you only needed to use $200,000 for repair, a good proposal comes up next year to do renovation and a small expansion or some type of expansion, then that money could still be used for that project. If we had taken that word out, then it would have taken that money away from being able to use for it. That's why I just, personally, I wanted to leave it all completely inclusive of all the different options.
Yeah, oh, I agree.
So the language, you're looking for the language of the article?
No, I've got the language will be in your
Yeah,
handout.
renovate, expand, and repair.
I know, but did you editorialize it in?
we mirrored the warrant articles.
We didn't put a lot
Okay.
of,
Oh, okay. Just wondering. And then my favorite one is Article 32, the Lakes Region Model Railroad Museum, warrant Article 32, that reads like a book. I didn't want to keep after it at the deliberative session. It was late at night, and enough is enough. But I've been through this, and it's like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. And what I found was that, and luckily it's all in the 2017 report, Warrant Article 32 was pretty simple. 22 was pretty simple in 2017, $95,000. And then it goes on, but it was basically to get the match money. And then
and that $95,000 capital reserve is funded.
capital reserve,
Is funded.
right,
So it was funded in 2017.
right.
Okay.
So there's not a whole lot of confusion with that one. And it said if it doesn't pass, then the lease would be void. Then they had warrant article, I'll come back to 23, 24 in 2017, that was the 10-year lease one. And may, doesn't say shall, but may provide the Lakes Region Railroad with another 10 years. So as I asked at the deliberative, you folks informed me that the lease has not been drafted.
That's correct.
So, and then we have warrant article 31 in 2018 was the extension to time. I'm simplifying.
Correct.
All right, and then we have the new warrant article 32. And the last part that bothers me in that warrant article was the part that certain language that may be conflicting. This supersedes that. But what and he's saying the Article 22 and Article 31, any conflicting language in those two articles, this article supersedes. But he left out something. He left out warrant Article 23, which was voted on in 2017 and passed 642 to 255. And that was, I probably should read it instead of, It says to relocate on same lot if Board of Selectmen determined it would better serve the needs of the town. He didn't say that this supersedes that. That is still in play. That was voted. It's still on the books. It stands. And the reason I bring it to your attention to be mindful of this in the back of your mind is we're going to have that charrette, hopefully the 1st of May. We don't know what's going to come out of that. All kinds of things, good and bad, can come out of that sort of a gathering. And so I ask you to be mindful of Warrant Article 23, 2017, that passed and is recorded on the books. It didn't go away. And here's Warrant Article 32. He only superseded number 22 and number 31.
And I think he was dealing with the money warrant articles in those.
I don't care what he thought or what he's
I'm
doing.
just
I'm just
saying that-
bringing it to your attention.
That's where, those are the ones he dealt with, which is what he's dealing with in here is the $95,000 that's in that capital reserve account.
Take it as you will. And then one last thing. At the deliberative session, you got a copy of the ecosystem management consultant plan. I'm wondering if you all had a chance to look at it regarding Albee Beach. Yeah, okay. And then I would ask that,
Is this
again...
is this the plan, that's-
Pardon?
Suzanne, is this the plan that recommends that there be some walkway construction done?
There was issue with the walkway, and perhaps signage should go in to
And I've read it.
direct people.
I've read it.
And there was an issue with the septic system
I've
as
read it.
well. So what I'm asking you to do as individuals, you don't lose your right as a citizen of this town just because you're a Board of Selectmen member, is that if you are in favor of this and you're asked by friends and neighbors, would you please give them information about it and hopefully support it? Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Do we have any other public input this evening? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to go into non-public session.
Move we go into non-public?
Second,
All those in favor?
yes?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.